Okay, so in the last lesson, we were talking about surds. And so I just want to do a quick little check that we still remember stuff. And so the question I want to start with is you need to simplify question C, but you may not use your calculator and you have to show you're working. And I would like us to start with just tips. Who can share a tip to the group about how you would start simplifying this surd expression? I want to know, what would your secret sauce be? Let's help each other out. Let's build a nice group bond here where we feel like we're on this mission together. Factors. You're on it, Amelia. You're on it. So we're going to break down 48, but we can choose different combinations. We could use 12 and 4. Actually, we could use 16 and 3, and both of those have squares in them. So that's kind of helpful. And I'm remembering from the last lesson how having squares is normally a good idea. So should I use 4 and 12, or should I use 3 and 16? It's actually a choice. What do you think I should use? We can also look at 147, and I'm remembering that 49 is a square number. And so I'm going to help you by saying 49 times 3 is the same as 147. Why is that helpful? Why is that helpful? Why is that helpful? And because there was a 3 in this one, I think I want to use a 3 times 16 in that one. Why am I so keen on having square numbers involved? Why am I so keen on having square numbers involved and also having like almost like a common factor in both? Let me know in the chat. Okay, so I want to know, why is it such a good idea to have a square in here and a square in here? Why does it make life good? Okay. So you can add them, exactly. So on the top line, in fact, let me zoom out a bit so you can see this. On the top line, you can then break this down into square root 16 times square root 3 plus square root 49 times square root 3. And so that is going to mean that this can be written. Okay, I'll wait one more step. Before we get there, Atlichang says, I think it's because you can find square roots of squares. Exactly, Atlichang. It's so easy. The square root of 16 is 4. And the square root, in fact, let me even do this, because we need to deal with the bottom line. Basically, this is so easy now, because that's 4 square root 3, and this is 7 square root 3. But we've left something out. We need to deal with this. Now, if we're sneaky, we can use your calculator, but we have to show working. So if you press square root 242, what do you get? If you get square root 242, what do you get? Now, you can't just do this and give an answer, because your teacher will give you nothing. But you can almost use it as an investigator. So what do you get if you put a square root 242 in your calculator? I'm teaching you the dark arts here. (11 square root 2). Okay, let me tell you how I'm going to be sneaky. If I just write 11 square root 2, my teacher's like, No marks for that, sorry. But you can work backwards and say, look, if this was 4, I know the number before must have been square root 16. So you can use the 11 and go, well, what is 11 times 11? Well, what is 11 times 11? It's 121. So now inside here, I'm going to go 121 times 2, which can then break down to, I can even write, let's do this, square root 121 times square root 2. All right. Give me a thumbs up if you followed me so far. And now I get 11 square root 2. Now we're not done, but I want you guys to try and keep going. What is my final answer going to be? And I'll use some highlights to point you in the right direction, but I'm not telling you anything. Well, actually, hold on. I suppose I should be highlighting the like terms. What's my final answer going to be? What do we get here? So I think these can cancel. And then I get square root 3 over square root 2, which is fine to leave as your final answer. Or you can use the law of surds to say this. You can actually bring them inside because division also allows you to collapse the surd. But I think most students would just leave it like that, and that's fine. Okay, give me a thumbs up if you followed that. Give me a thumbs down if you didn't follow that. I want to do one more of these, and then I can move on. Okay, let's go for this one. I want you to simplify this, and I want us to share our knowledge. I want us to feel like a team. We don't have to munch this by ourselves. I want you to give any tips to your classmates in the chat now about how you would approach this problem, or even maybe tell us what you think is difficult about this one. What makes it hard for you? You can either give us a tip or you can tell us what you feel is scary. I want everyone to make a comment so we feel like we're sharing together. Welcome, CM Tanda. Okay. So, what do we think is scary? If I was a student, maybe I'd say the 1,000 looks a bit scary. And at Lichang, do we first have to deal with what's in the brackets? I think so. I think at Lichang, we should, because they look big numbers. Hey, like the square root 2 is not a problem, but the square root 80, I probably need to break it down into something. Now, I have some choices. I also need to break down the 1,000 into something. So that maybe we can deal with. You know what? There's many ways to get there. I was thinking, what about either 80 can be 5 times 16, or it can be 20 times 4. Which one should I use? The 20 times 4 or the 5 times 16? Both seem like they have a square in it. Okay. The people of the room, Amelia, Atlichang, have said 5 times 16. And you know what? Because I'm feeling more confident, I'm going to start skipping a step. I'm going to say, look, I now has square root 5 times square root 16. And I know that that bit is the same as that. Okay, so that's because I'm feeling like I understand surds a bit more. Now, what should I break 45 up into? What should I break 45 up into? Well, you guys are on it. 5 times 9. Yes. So we'll go square root 5 times square root 9. So we've dealt with the top one. But now we have to confront this 1,000. Now you could be sneaky and work backwards using the calculator like I showed you before, or you could think about what does 1,000 break down into? And part of me wants to go 100 times 10. Don't know if anybody else thought of that. So 100 times 10 maybe? Like I thought that could be good. Or did you see another combination? What did you choose? So I'm going to go square root 10 times square root 100. Okay. Now, the square root 2 is hanging out in front. Inside my bracket, I have that, which is going to be 4 root 5. And then I'm going to have minus 3 root 5 because of this. And this is all going to be over. This is going to become a 10. So 10 root 10. I want you to see, can you get to the next step by yourself? And when you're done with the next step, just say done in the chat. What is the next thing going to be? I'm pretty certain that's going to be there, but I want you to think of what's there and what do you want to do down here? Okay, so I am noticing that. So the good news is 4 root 5 minus 3 root 5 is just 1 root 5, or just root 5. And then on the bottom, I've got 10. Now, what do I need to do with this root 10? It feels like it's not behaving. What can I do with the root 10? Split it. Yes. Remember, I can split this into that. Now, I want the final answer. What is the final answer going to be for this? So this is going to cancel with that. It's equivalent to 1. This is going to cancel with this, but be careful. There's a 1 on top. There's a 10 on the bottom. So the final answer will be 1 over 10. Now that was a pretty decent one. So I'll let you take a screenshot now if you need to before I move on. But you still would have got 4 out of 5 marks for this if you had done it like that. You just would have lost the last mark. Okay, give me a thumbs up when you're ready to move on. And I'm going to move on to what's called surd equations. It's the last thing for this unit that we're going to do. Okay, take a screenshot if you need to. Let's go on to surd equations. So I'm going to do an example with the surd equation, and then you're going to do one for me by yourself. So a surd equation is just an equation which has a root bracket where it's basically not a perfect square or a perfect cube inside. And because this is a variable, then we can call this a surd. And we go through a 4-step process. Step 1 is isolate the surd, get it by itself. Now, in this case, it's by itself. Step 2 is square both sides. Who knows why I would square both sides in a surd equation? Okay, let's look at the chat. So you have said remove, yep. The reason you square both sides is you remove the square root. So if you look here, we are going to square both sides. And when we do that, we get left with x minus 3 is 4. Then the third step is to solve the equation. And the fourth step is to check that the solution is valid. And the reason we check is because certain equations can produce false solutions because of the squaring. So the answer here would just be x is 7. And then what we do is we check. If I put 7 back in here, 7 minus 3 is 4. The square root of 4 is 2. And so we can say the left-hand side does equal the right-hand side. And so the solution is valid. Okay. What I want you to do is I want you to take that process and I want you to apply it to this question. And when you have finished solving it, I want you to say done in the chat. So what is step 1? I need to isolate. That's done. Then step 2, I want you to do that. And then when you got the answer, I want you to put the answer in the chat. Okay. So let's have a look. If we square both sides, we're going to get x plus 2 is 81. Now, just to show it explicitly, I get that. And then x is 79. Now, let's just check that. 79 plus 2 is 81. The square root of 81 is 9. And so we, just to show that we have checked it, we just say that. And it's a valid answer. Okay, now that's a basic surd equation. How can I make a surd equation a little bit harder? I want us to do number 1. So I want you to try and apply those 4 steps to solving this surd equation. And I'm going to hand over to you guys. But if, for example, there's a question or you're uncertain, I want you to raise your hand and then we can chat. But I feel like you'll be able to apply the 4 steps. I will give you the 4 steps. Then pop your answer in the chat when you are done. Yeah, Siamtanda, let's go to you. Let me unmute you if I... Yeah. What's your question, Siamtanda?
So it's not related to this, but like it is
Yeah.
related to say I wanted to ask at the end of the class if you could help me with the question that I struggled with in my topic test.
Yeah, I can do that. I'm sure I can do that. Definitely. Just can you send it? Maybe I wonder if you can put it. Can you put a picture in the chat? Are you like the image, or maybe you can send it to I'm just trying
I
to think
remember
how.
the question. I can speak it out loud. I remember the
Okay, go
question.
for it. Yeah.
It's x squared. I mean, it's 2 to the power x
Say that again.
plus
X squared
y.
minus 2 to the power
No,
of
it's not
x.
x. No, it's not x squared. It's 2 to the power of. It starts with 2 to the power of x plus 1.
2 to the power of x plus 1. Yeah.
Then minus. It says minus then 2 to the power x minus 2.
Okay. Yeah.
Then it's equals to 14 root 2.
Okay. I'll have a look at that later on. So 2 to the power of x plus 1 minus 2 to the power of x minus 2 equals 14 root 2.
Yes.
Okay. I will definitely have a look at that, and we can solve it at the end of the lesson tonight. That's the wonderful thing about small classes. We're very flexible. So everyone, have we got an answer yet? For that, how are we doing? Let's have a look. So step 1 is to isolate. So what we have, I'll look here. So what do we have here? Okay, so we've got this as step 1. Then I square both sides. I get 3x plus 4 is 25. Then I get 3x is 21. Then I get x is 21 over 3, which is 7. Now I have to check that. So 3 times 7 is 21 plus 4 is 25. Square root 25 is 5. So we have left-hand side equals right-hand side. All right. Give me a thumbs up if you felt okay with that. Give me a thumbs down if you didn't. Okay, awesome. Can we, okay, let's see if we can squeeze one more before break time, and then we're gonna have a break. So if I look at this one over here, or did I rub out? No, it's still there. I'll come back to that. Okay, if I see this third equation, can you solve that for me? Or if you're unsure, just raise your hand and then we can have a chat. Think of the 4 steps. Can you solve that third equation? Okay, so isolate, it's isolated. Square both sides, I'm going to get that. But now what's interesting is that looks a lot like a quadratic equation. And so what you could do is bring it into standard form. And then what do I need to do next? I need to solve that. Now, there's two ways you can solve it. You can either use the quadratic formula, which I will teach you next week, or you can do good old factorizing. And there's different ways of doing this, but I think -2 + 1. Yep. I can do it like that. And then if x was 2, this bracket would be 0, and 0 times anything is 0. So x is 2 or x is -1. But we've got to do one more final thing for a surd equation. What do we have to do? Okay, you need to test or check. So let's have a look. If I go x + 2 is 4, and 4 square rooted is 2, that's fine. So the left-hand side equals the right-hand side. So that answer is fine. But x is -1. If I put that in, well, -1 + 2 is 1. The square root of 1 is 1. But x was -1 to start with. So 1 can't equal -1. So we say in the second case, the left-hand side does not equal the right-hand side, and we reject that answer. And so the only answer here will be x is 2. Give me a thumbs up if you've got that. Give me a thumbs down if you didn't follow that check I was doing. Okay. All right, everyone, let's have a nice break. I want you to turn on your cameras, and I want you to stand up with me. I want to just have us kind of unwind a bit. So what am I doing? So stop share. There we go. Okay, so turn those cameras on and let's stand up. And I want to see the students with me in the room. Let's do it, people. Let's do it. Okay, so on our feet, and I want to breathe. Breathe in. And hold. And breathe in. Okay, then I want you to shake out your arms. And I want you to shake out your legs. And then I want you to roll your shoulders. And then I want you to just do a bit of light rotating. Yeah. And then just to get our blood pumping, I want us to do 15 jumping jacks. This is the jumping jack. Make sure that the space around you is clear, and let's go. 2, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11, 13, 14, 15. Ooh, I can feel the blood pumping in my body, which is good for feeling alive. And today's brain break is this. I want to know what a square, actually, you know what, actually, I'll leave it simple, it's fine. Tell me what you get for this. Simtanda, you tired? Okay. I also it is a long day, I know. The thing is, what I find is if I jump around, I find my attention span gets better. And so, yeah, like I find that even when I'm tired, if I do some movement, then I feel my energy come back. So I know it's a tough one, end of the day, um, but that's been my experience, that you almost create your own energy. But thanks for messaging, Simtat. I appreciate it. And Amelia. Okay, so the value of the square is 8. So together there are 8, but how much is each square? But how did you go straight there? Because I would have gone that is the one I do first. And then I do this is 2. And then the square is not 8. What's the square going to be? It's 8 in total. Well, what does the thing by itself have to be? 4, exactly. So 4 and 4, and that's okay. So that's our little novelty puzzle. It wasn't too hard today. I can make them harder, but it's also nice. Sometimes it's just fun to have a little logic puzzle that is just sort of enjoyable for the sake of it. Okay, last, give me 10 more quality minutes, and then we're done for today. So 10 more quality minutes. I know it's been a long day, and so I appreciate that it has been. So let's do this as a team. This is a much harder one. Why is this much harder? Why is this much harder? What makes it hard? Who can identify what? You can put your hand up, you can put it in the chat. What makes it harder? If you think of my first step, I need to isolate. So then nothing's there hard. Okay. Tell me, Amelia, what's my first step? What's my first step? Oh, there we go. The 4. So I think to isolate the surd, to get this by itself, there are 2 things that are getting in the way. Oh, that's the problem with text, isn't it? You can never know context. Okay, I was going to say this. I was going to say step 1 is this. So I've dealt with this. What do I have to do next? I have to deal with that. So if I deal with that, what do I get? Atlakan, perfect. Perfect, yes. So we've got the X, and then the next step is going to be bring it across. But now, what's its relationship? It's times 3, so it would become divide by 3. Okay, good news. We have isolated the surd. But a little problem is going to be that we need to square both sides now. And squaring this looks like a bit of a nasty one. So we know that this will become x plus 2. That's the whole point. You get rid of the surd. But to figure out a monster indeed, but just keep calm and carry on, because I actually know that this means the same thing as that. So what is my bottom number going to be if I've got 2 minus x times 2 minus 6? That's a bit tricky, but what is the bottom part going to be? It's 9, yeah, piece of cake. So x plus 2, no problem. Here is 9, no problem. And now I have to multiply these two out. Now, what technique am I going to use for that? I think I learned about it in grade 9. Isn't there something called FOIL? Yes, at ligt on the money. So I want you guys to FOIL that, and I want you to get to the next step before I do it, and then tell me done in the chat before you've done it. And then I will, but I don't want to steal the joy of discovery. So tell me done when you've multiplied it out, and then we'll talk about the next step. Okay, so 4 minus 2x minus 2x plus x squared over 9. And then I've got an x plus 2 hanging out here. But there's a couple of things I have to deal with. I have to clean up this mess over here. So, but I think I know how to do that. That's going to be looking for like terms. But I also have to deal with the 9. And I think I want to deal with the 9 first. So if it's divide on this side, it's going to become that on that side. And then if I rewrite this in standard form, I get that. Now, I want to see, can you go from here to getting me the solution? I'm going to give you some time, and I want you to try and solve for the value of x, and then I want you to tell me what it is, or if you get stuck, I want you to let me know in the chat or raise your hand. Amelia, let's go to you. Let's unmute. Yeah,
Hi, sir. Can you hear me?
loud and clear. You've got a very good connection. How can I help?
Oh, sir, I just wanted to ask, when do you know when to split up the 2x over 3 or to distribute the square?
Okay, there's actually a choice, right? So some people will say, look, if you know the if you know the squaring and binomial shortcut, what you could do is you could say, look, I know in step 1, 3 squared is 9, and then you just go straight to that. Is that what you're asking, Amelia? Like, are you allowed to do that?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, you can. The only reason I did it the long way is I just wanted to show you, but it is quicker if you go from that step, and then you could almost go straight to that step over here. And that's fine.
Yeah.
Good
Okay.
question.
Thank you, sir.
Good question.
Thank you.
Okay. So now we have to try and get the answer for this bit over here. And so I'm going to distribute the 9. And then I'm going to move everything to one side. Wait, let me be careful here. Minus 9x, so minus 13x, minus 14. And I think okay. Okay, where were we? So we have that. Then what's going on here? So we have 0 equals x, and then this is going to be a minus plus. All right. So what is my answer for x going to be? I think x is going to be... Oh, Amelia, your hand is up. Is it still up, or do you have another question? I'll unmute you if you have another question. So we have x is going to be equal to 14, no problem, or x is equal to minus 1. But we need to check. So now that was quite a long question. Although it doesn't have to, I probably made it a bit more long than it needed to be. So let's check. 14 plus 2 is 16. 16 square rooted is 4. 4 times 3 is 12. 12 plus 14 does not equal 2. So from the check that I just did, this answer is not valid. And so I need to reject it. What about minus 1? Okay, minus 1 plus 2 is 1. Square root of 1 is 1. 3 times 1 is 3, plus minus 1 is 2. This works. And so that is a valid solution. All right, so everyone, that was quite a tasty one to end with today. I'm going to call today's lesson formally over, but I like the idea of answering student questions in the last 10 minutes. So for those who don't have any additional questions from class, the class is finished for today, and the quiz for this week is already on Google Classroom, and you are most welcome to start that now. However, I'm going to move, once I've given you a chance to take a screenshot if you want or ask any questions, I'm going to go and answer CM Tanda's question from earlier. So are there any final questions about this one? Give me a happy face or a thumbs up if you followed this rather beast of a Surd equation. Give me a meh if you're somewhere in the middle, and give me a unhappy if you're like, whoa, that escalated quickly. All right. Then let us go to the question from earlier in the lesson. But yeah, and don't be afraid to rewatch this lesson when the recording comes out. So let me find, where is the question? Oh, here we go. All right. So this is a question to do with exponents. And you have to solve for x, an exponential equation. Now, I haven't covered this technique with you in these 6 lessons, but I have covered it in previous videos that I'll share at the end of the topic. And what we need to do is we need to factorize or take out the 2 to the x. Some students would say splitting it is a good idea. So let's say, so minus. So give me a thumbs up if you follow how I went from here to here. Oh, Stephen, do you want another one like that to practice? Okay, we'll go back in a moment. I just want to finish this question. Yeah. So now what we do is we take out 2x because 2x is in common to both. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say, look, that has to be 2 to the 1. This stays here. What do we think is going to go here? It's just going to be 2 to the minus 2. Now, these questions typically say you can't use your calculator. You have to show working, right? So let's see what we can do here. I think that this is just 2 over 1 over 2 squared. And this is still 14 root 2. Okay, let me see if I can create some more space here. See if I can get some more space. Oh, I think I've made the computer angry. Okay, let me move that away. So I now need to combine this together. And this is just 2 minus a quarter, 14 root 2. Okay, so I've done that. And then I think, what is 2 minus a quarter? It's just going to be 1 3/4. So this is quite a nasty question, but whatever, we'll get there. Then what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn it into a improper 1. So let me get rid of this so that you have more space to see what's going on. I'm going to change colors so that it stands out. Okay, this can be written as 7/4. And this is 14 root 2. If I times both sides by 4/7, okay, so 4/7, let me even just do it here. Then that's going to cancel out and I get 2 to the x. And what am I getting here? Well, 14/7 is 2, and 4 times 2 is 8 root 2. Okay, who wants to have a guess at how we go from here? I'll bring everything. What's going to be my final step? So we know that we want this to be 2 to the 3. Do we have a way of changing this to be a power of 2? Okay, I'll slow down. So I think I may have lost you when I went from here up here. So let me redo that bit. Let me redo that bit. So, and I'll use a different color. I'm going to say that I can rewrite this as 7/4, and then the 14 root 2 is still here. Now, I want to bring this to the other side. Now, one way of doing that is just multiplying both sides by 4/7. And the reason I chose 4/7 is I know that that will cancel out with those things. But now I also have to times 4/7 by 14. Now, 4/7 times 14, you can do it in your calculator, but you can also say 14 divided by 7 is 2. 4 times 2 is 8. So I have 8 root 2. And then on this side, I've got 2 to the x. Give me a thumbs up if you followed that. Okay, now I'm going to suggest that this can be done because the square root is the same as the power of a half. What is my final answer going to be? What is x going to be? What's the final answer going to be? So it's going to be 7/2 or 3.5. That was a really great question. And you know what? It's given me such a good idea. Why don't we reserve the last 10 minutes, or maybe even the last 15 minutes of certain lessons for audience questions, where you can have a question that is in the topic we're doing, but that we can sort of have some, and maybe you can even send it to me sometimes before the lesson. Does that sound like a good idea? It's always so nice to have more interactivity. And so I think we've stumbled onto something quite fun here. All right. Are there any final questions about this beast of a question that was just raised here? Are there any steps you want me to go over before we bring the lesson to a close? Yeah, Amelia, let's go to you.
Hi, sir.
Okay.
So I just wanted to ask how you went from square root 2 to the power of a half.
Okay. There is a law which says, so I don't know if you've seen that law before, but there's a law that says it converts between powers and surds, or another way of seeing this law is to see it as like that. So I'll give you an example. If we have the cube root of x, that is the same as x
Oh,
to the power of 1/3. Do you remember that?
yes, sir.